Agua Magazine podcast. Here with me is the doctor of social media, Mr. Jonathan Bertrand. And so we're just going to start off with, where he started, where he's at, and where he wants to go. So let's just start off with, your, I guess, adolescence, your childhood, and then how that brought you to where you're at now.
Okay. So to start out, I started with social media awareness when I was 15 years old in high school. I was someone that dealt with online bullying from 2010 to 2014 before I went to college. And I found that social media and awareness wasn't even talked about. And cyberbullying was still a taboo conversation amongst many of my peers. And we also realized too that, or I realized at the time, that there needed to be a discussion, whether it was a hard talk, soft talk, whatever talk, there needed to be something. So I decided to create the conversation, and not just create the conversation, but put terms to match the conversation. And then as an advocate, not just create myself as the advocate, but also in the process, teach others. So I've been able to do that from my high school years. And what I did in high school was actually partner with my VP, Lexington Cage, where we developed what we call the Jonathan Bertrand Anti-Cyberbully Act. And this was something to where we were basically trying to modify a law that was already in place that was a double standard for schools who were implementing a policy called the Johnson Act. And basically, students had to be in the same room as the bully. So someone like me who saw this and was like, well, hey, this is a double standard, that doesn't solve the problem. Nothing's being addressed. So what is a no contract policy? It's just no contact, but a friend can do something if they're told. So, it only went up as far as a congresswoman, but, I knew the power of social media, and, that leads me to college. And that's actually how I started in my early years. And I was able to develop something that helped a lot of people in my high school years.
Okay. That's good to hear. I like where you're going. That sounds like a ride. So speak to me about the university that you went to.
FAMU.
Represent.
The great FAMU High at the Seven Hills. Where do I start? Started summer 2014. Went there. I was a part of the CEDAR program for students with disabilities. And at the CEDAR program, they made me feel very comfortable about, problems that I was having, the growing pains of an early college student. And realizing that, as you grow in this environment, whether it's an HBCU, community college, wherever, it's all the same at some degree. Only difference is where you're at and the dynamic. So I was able to embrace the HBCU life in the community around me. And many individuals such as yourself
Hey.
who saw me in the early years of the movement that started it all, the social networking effect, what's your story, which kind of streamlined a lot of the conversations with individuals. And, that tagline, what's your story, was all about the user of social media and me asking their questions, me wanting to know their backgrounds, and also how social media affected them from start to current date. And as we saw, and as you yourself, who was at the event, you saw a lot of different reactions from the crowd. Some people didn't know a lot of the tracking was going on. This was, mind you, 2015? No, 2016. This was 2016.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was 2016. So in 2016, the conversation of, you being tracked on social media, a surveillance state, you were there. A lot of people were like, huh, what are you talking about? There's no way. And I brought the facts, was like, no, you may think social media, but it's happening right in front of you, the targeting ads, everything. And that was the catalyst. And we had close to 30, 40 students there and one professor. So it was one of those things where, mind you, want to make this very clear. This was during finals week.
Oh yeah. Look, I was tired.
So it was, my timing was not the best,
Yeah,
but we
yeah.
showed that it can be done. We showed that in a college level setting, we can have these conversations. And that was the whole point of having that event. It was the first event of any college. And since then, recently just had an event with the University of California, Riverside,
Woo!
this past week. And basically introducing the triple conscious theory, which introduces social media persona, social media dependency disorder, social media awareness, cyber psychoanalysis, which is a play on Sigmund Freud's psychoanalysis.
Facts,
So these
facts.
are the kind of things that, I tell people when you see films out now, when you see all this stuff come out, you got to remember it's one thing to be at the universities that created the problem. But when you're on the outside, like myself and many others, you created this logo.
Oh,
One,
that shirt, real nice.
I want to make sure people know he
Hey,
developed the logo that people see today that
yes.
is known internationally and nationally, that are being used at universities. He did me a solid and was like,
Okay.
John, when I give you the phone call, don't forget me. And here we are today. But
Yes.
it takes people like Malik who understand that people like me when I first started, didn't have money, didn't have, and I literally had to pull it out of
Yeah.
thin air. But this is what this movement's all about. The social networking effect, social media awareness is about finding a common ground in the online space and understanding that when you use social media, you're contributing. But the question is, how are you contributing to the equation? And remember, as you use social media, you're also building an online persona. And when you build that persona, that's a reflection of you. Hypothetically speaking, that's your persona in real life, because that's your
Okay.
thoughts, that's your words, that's your written word, and those are finite in that way. And people interpret differently how you post, what you say, and we're trying to reconnect with the common touch as best as possible. So, yeah, that was my college experience. Left in 2016. That's a whole other story.
Yeah.
But I'm glad things happened the way they did. I did not finish college, but I do work with colleges, consult, lecturing, speaking engagements, working with doctors currently, producing research, published at the
Hey.
College of Creative Studies, work with the Ruderman Foundation at MIT for Disability Inclusion, introducing the disorder as a potential disability based on the American Disability Act.
Yes.
So we've been able to introduce a lot of things very quickly. And it's conversations like this that allow me to have a platform.
Oh yeah, indeed, indeed. Dang, I mean, there's so many points to touch on. Um,
Yeah.
so let me start with this. Is people like losing their jobs based on social media an aspect of triple conscious theory?
Okay, so this is actually something I just got done watching on Netflix called Decoded Bias. And one of the big things and one of the big conversations today is, how does social media affect employment
Mm.
because of bias in the online world? And nowadays, and what I just got done watching about the Decoded was all about implicit bias in the online world. So the whole point of the social media persona, the triple conscious theory, was to show how African Americans in 1903, W.E.B. Du Bois was explaining that, it's, well, what we call code switching,
Yeah.
back then is what they had to do in public, but never in private. Because you
Mm.
can be yourself in private all you want, but in public, they're going to have bias towards you based on your beliefs, your backgrounds, and more. And public acceptance isn't always accepted for what you believe. And in the online world, with artificial intelligence being introduced and all these different algorithms that, are basically built by certain people, it's bias. And that's something to where, with the social media persona, you could tell very clearly there's bias all the way around.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing about the social media persona, we're the ones that are feeding the platform. But the difference is when the platform feeds us,
Yeah.
it's like, okay, you're influencing our decisions, which help us build a persona in the online world by building us advertisements, by building us, nude stuff, what's popular. And in reality, when you take all that away, you're losing reality for what it actually is. And what's reality in the online space isn't what's actually real. It's biased to
Yeah.
a large audience.
Hey, that's crazy that you say that. Now, because that makes me think about, even how I interact on social media and the things that I do, and consciously and unconsciously, how I do it. That's wild, man. That's great. So to add to that, I mean, you have a book
Yep.
out. How you, I guess, with your organizations, was it the Global Touch and the social networking
Social
effect?
media, Social Media Research Corporation.
That one. Sorry.
Yep.
How are you integrating with universities and educating the people, because this is definitely crucial information as technology is expanding into that space.
Yes. So the way we've been integrating is starting from the basic. What is social media, and then what each platform is. But not just that, but as a user, how do you use it yourself? And what are you currently using it for? And then we break down introducing the theory. So we introduce the theory of, okay, are you using your social media for the public reason? Are you private on social media? Private, because people think they're private on social
Yeah.
media. Really, you just limit what people see. But other than that, as long as they have your IP address and anything like that, you're public. So one of these big things that I always tell universities that I work with is that we got to start from the basics, and it's all about human psychology. That's all social media is. What you want, what triggers you, what makes you want to use, and what makes you want to click the phone to get on. And it's all about self-control. And when you give people impulsive reasons to check, they're gonna automatically click in. But when you put in blockers and say, hey, when you know the reason why you're using social media, when you have an intention for using social media, you'll find yourself balancing that lever scale of, okay, online versus in person. Because remember, relationships now have changed, friendships have changed, families have changed, and we're seeing people's true intentions in the online space. It's never in the reality that we physically live in anymore. So before, where we can defend ourselves and stick behind somebody, all they have to do is go through their post, and this is what I'm teaching universities. If you're going to start in your freshman year, not posting something, not talking about politics, I can assure you within the 1, 3, 4 years in the phase of using social media, you're going to be influenced a certain way. And these are the kind of things where my generation, as you saw things happen that I haven't even told you on the set. This would never happen. This would never happen without social media. And we saw people get accused of all different type of heinous crimes that in reality didn't happen.
True.
And there was a whole makeshift thing in group me's going on. It was accusations being thrown around. And when you actually got on the bottom of it, all the individual was trying to do is mess with the person's reputation in the online space. Because once it's out there, people believe the facts and there's no follow-up. And these are the kind of things I'm teaching colleges to pay attention to. Enrollment. When you go for an enrollment process, student admissions, they don't check they check your resume, but they go to social media.
Facts.
And mind you, the resume used to be a fine tailored document that, okay, if the job shut down, that was an old job, but it ain't there no more. It's your word versus theirs. But now social media is an everyday timeline of your personality, your behavior. They watch who you follow. So who do you follow says a lot about who you are as a person, but that doesn't always mean that's true.
True.
So these are the kind of things, I'm literally working to this day as of tonight to work with universities from the East Coast, Midwest, West Coast, Germany, England, trying to figure out, well, what is the even balance? And I know it takes a lot of data, but we're getting there. We're making progress. But it starts with conversation of what is the awareness and what are we making the awareness about at this very moment in time. We know it's employment for this conversation. We know it could be, admissions for this conversation, but for employment purposes, oh no, it's shifting how people hire. And if you look at decoded bias, they break down at companies such as Amazon, Microsoft, and more, where like for example, the individual said that when it came to facial recognition, or resume recognition, if it highlighted women, for example, and it said you did women's water polo, anything with women in it, it would cancel the resume 100%. And
Whoa.
she was like, oh yeah, oh yeah. And these are the kind of things where, for what we're looking to do, we need to make people aware of this type of stuff. Like, okay, so you're telling me a whole company, a $1 trillion company, eliminated almost a whole gender to a degree because of a resume that was a basically implicit biased by an algorithm. And they saw social media, and they pull all this data to figure out where exactly it's affecting you and how it's causing, all these different little things that they try to pick and choose to give you a job. There's no human interaction, and that's the problem.
Well, yeah, no, that brings into question, cancel culture and also social engineering.
Ooh,
we got time. We got time.
Oh man. Okay. So, I'll start with the social engineering first.
Okay.
So the social engineering, in the United States, this is all about capitalism. So our social engineering is about the dollar. If it doesn't make dollar, it doesn't make sense.
Yes.
But when you have machine learning, when you have algorithms that can push ads to Americans, because us Americans, that's what we're dealt with, that's all we get. If we're, we buy excessively. I went to Best Buy today, for example, and the advisor, because I just learned that Best Buy calls their employees advisors because they don't make commission off sales. And he explained, he explained to me, like the differences between the companies. And he was like, no, like Sony, for example, is very about the employee, very about privacy protection. And that's why you don't hear much about Sony having issues, because they're all about integrity. That's why you don't really see much advertising about Sony, unlike the others. But if you go to places like China, Japan, and you do research on that, if all the data that they got, they make it very clear to you, hey, we're tracking you, hey, we're doing this. We're really making sure that you guys understand that what you say online is going to affect you. They're in your face. In America, they try to hide it. And that's the problem. Because if you know anything about George Orwell, 1984, you know exactly, he had a whole line about that, about Big Brother's watching you. Yeah. And if you know anything about HBCUs and literature class, we have to talk about that. Clockwork Orange,
yes,
all that stuff. Whole analysis. And these are the type of things where it's happening in real life. And this is all we're trying to do here at the Global Touch Foundation and Social Media Research Corporation, is bring it to you directly, giving you an option and showing you this is what is happening. This is what happens when you post positively. This is when you post negatively. But also know, social media can and will be used against you. And they're not going to be upfront about it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, for now, because you look at, Europe and the EU and their policies towards, social media and data. So, I think there's potential here, but, for example, Facebook, they're fighting Apple over privacy because, essentially, like to your point, they're trying to hide it.
And transparency is key in the 21st century. If you have transparency, people flock to you. But the thing is, though, is that when you're integrated in everyone's life, day by day, and you have more access to data than the government itself of that specific country, you got to think about the type of power that person has. And the whole point of any type of, decentralization, is having power in your usage of data, information, and control. Well, when everything is centralized, then, like the central banks, for example, that whole conversation about governments and the International Monetary Fund, it's like, okay, you see what they fund, they have it on their website, true. But, they're all about, okay, how can we help countries build, with this loan that we give you? But over time, it's like, okay, well, when you introduce things like crypto, when you introduce things like Ethereum or Cardano, all these different
Yeah.
things, and you got new venture capitalist funds being built in the online space, and people are jumping because social media hypes it up times 100.
Mm-hmm.
Unlike a regular bank that would normally put a bulletin out publicly or an ad out, where it may be only 10x instead of 10 100. The moment you say, "Oh, I can control my own," you see the reaction, and you see how governments try to regulate. You see how things come into play, and this is what I always tell people: the day that they officially say, here in the United States, we're going to advocate for social media awareness or whatever,
Yeah.
educating you on all things social media, and that does come up. I can assure you,
Hey.
as things happen in other countries with the tracking and the monitoring, it's already happening in England. They have vans on the outside of buildings, literally with cameras with facial recognition that literally go through police databases.
Mm.
And within 30, oh yeah, like watch that, watch
Okay.
decoded bias.
I'm gonna look
Watch
into it.
that, and they literally showed how quickly they mismatch people. And they had this African American fellow on camera, and they showed that, like, they got it on camera that
Yeah.
literally within that time frame they misidentified him in their police database based on the algorithm.
Yeah, because
And
I want to speak to that a little bit. It's it's interesting in terms of data and AI and things like that, because there's bias there, because essentially a certain group of people, i.e., white people, they made those platforms, and so it's looking from that perception. Because I was reading an article about a young woman working for Google in their AI department, and she was trying to essentially let them know that there was bias, but Google was like, "Yeah, we know, but just don't tell everyone that is there, and so you should leave the company." You know what I'm saying? Essentially.
Leave the company. They terminated her.
Yeah,
They terminated her.
You're
No,
right.
see, but that's the thing though. But that's the thing. It's when the companies become more powerful than the government.
Mm.
That's the problem. And and mind you, we're still in the first 20 years of this. It's like, yeah, AI's been around since I believe the 50s, believe it or not. At Dartmouth University, that's where the fathers of AI came from.
Mm.
But if you look at who created it, and they even say this in the film, all white men, and these are the type of things where, they say that with AI, a lot of it is literally built off learned behavior. And there was an owl that Microsoft created on Twitter called Tay. And literally, they showed a clip of like what type of post and what the owl was actually saying. And it became a racist. It was basically misogynistic, they said, towards women, and very vulgar, like very vulgar. And all it did was learn what the online space was doing at that time. So they were like, okay, if OWL is built off of past experiences, it has to be regulated. So what they did was, to give credit to Microsoft, they went to Microsoft, and she said that they literally changed their data and whatnot. And what they found was that once they recorrected some things in the data based off the bias, they were able to kind of even out the playing field, and the African Americans weren't misread, and they were actually able to be read as the white individual. But they had to go in and correct it, and they had to monitor it. So these are the type of things where I always tell people, even as users of social media, that's the same exact thing. We're building our own algorithms from within. Only difference is, we're the human computers that are feeding this. And every human that interacts on our profiles, that's the same exact thing. We're the human owl version of the internet. But we're giving the internet all the data, and whoever reads our information, we're either giving them a bad bias or a positive bias. And it's up to us to determine how we want to use this platform. And every platform is different. And if you don't know the platform, I urge you to learn the platform, so you don't end up in that pool of, well, I posted this 10 years ago.
That's true.
You end up losing your job because of it.
Yeah, man, that's wild. But yeah, so I guess to kind of dive a little bit deeper, what do you think about, Black people getting into social media and also AI, how would that, I guess, change the field or the place?
Well, I mean, it's awesome. I mean, Black in Tech is great. I love it.
Hey, yeah.
I love working with people. Shout out to my Black in Tech family, which is a real group we have. But it's a thing. I mean, it's a cultural thing. And when you bring diversity into a space that was only meant for the people that can afford computers or people that can get into these Ivy League schools, which you can tell with all the films that are coming out,
History.
where they're from. It's people like us where, you saw a Black kid from FAMU, HBCU,
Yeah,
where we don't have millions of dollars at our disposal,
that's true. Sure.
with endless amount of money to develop whole $1 million programs to explain this. But, with African Americans supporting other African Americans, hiring African Americans to do the work,
Yes.
and when opportunities like this come, giving opportunities to those that are less fortunate and realizing that just because I come from a certain area, I mean, I was fortunate enough to go to a nice school, FAMU, nice school.
Yeah.
And also, give other people opportunities along the way where they may never been introduced to an opportunity like what I've had. And even if it's just, hey, create a graphic, for the movement, or hey, help me create a slogan, or hey, help me design the website. It's all about opening doors for people. And if you're going to close doors on people, you're only hindering the next generation from developing the next solution. And I always let people know that if you're going to hinder, step aside, because there's people like me, you, and many others that you saw behind me that were pushing us forward when companies try to stop us, when universities try to stop us.
Yeah.
And
True.
when the cause is just, people will support. And I always tell people that if you're going to do anything in this space, in the online space, have a purpose, have a reason, and have an end of why you're doing it.
True. Dang, yeah, spitting straight facts. So this is just a question, a little bit off, but would you create your own social network?
That's the $1 billion question. Okay, hold on. Let's get technical. So do you mean having my team manage my account and I stand back and I don't touch it? Like, do you mean that, or do you see? I'm getting technical with you.
Yeah.
Or do you mean Jonathan Bertrand, pioneer of social media awareness, literally deleting no footprint, accounts off? Is that deep?
Well, more so in the sense creating your own space, like a Black-owned Facebook, for example, or your own Facebook or Discord or Twitch or whatever you want to call it, but that type of social network.
Oh yeah, I mean no, okay.
Look.
see, if the option came and someone came to me and I had the financial backing and know-how, and I could fund it all myself and be like, sure, I see this as the future of social media, all the way. But being the person that I am, I would make sure there are guidelines. I would make sure people know we have an awareness attached to this. Everyone that signs up will need to sign this agreement. It's not just going to be bedded into the terms and conditions that are 90 pages long. I really want people to see it front and center. And these are the type of things that I'll be advocating for in the future, whether it's Congress, the Senate, whether it's the mayor's office. This is where we're working towards partnering with lobbyists, legislators to get these type of things, to actually be done. So companies are held liable or they have something put in place, a preventer, because there's no prevention right now. There is no prevention. You can't be reactive every single time. You got to have prevention.
Yeah.
And that's something where, yes, if it came to be, I would do that in a heartbeat. No problem.
Well, like you said, Black in Tech. So I think it's a possibility of that actually happening. You never know.
Well, hey, someone has to put the funding up, right?
Yeah, true. We could talk about that off camera, but
yeah.
But yeah, no. Okay, so to pivot, where do you see this going in the future?
Okay. So where I see this going in the future, just as a researcher, as someone that's building a national team from high school to colleges, I see this basically addressing the social media persona through thorough research, quantitative, and making sure that we literally develop the meaning, the theories, the purpose, and not just numbers and data,
Yeah.
but also programs to address this. So yeah, I would say the goal isn't to be number two, number three, it's to be number one.
That's what I'm talking about.
Be
Yeah.
number one. So I'm letting that be known on record. To be number one in the research, but not just number one, but number one as in like I want to partner with companies like Johnson and Johnson. I want to partner with military organizations such as the Air Force Laboratory, or Air Force Research Center. Places that are interested in this type of work.
Yes.
And if you look at my social media, they're public. They're there. They
Mhm.
reposted our work. So these are the type of things where many people say that's not an endorsement, but for the millennial,
Yeah.
that is big. And for something that has not been said in the public on a mass scale, that's where it's going. And we're creating the preemptive research for this. We're defining in the 21st century what the social media persona is, not just as users, but as people that are looking for solutions. And we're also focusing on each section, so meaning every time zone has a different usage for social media. It affects everyone different on the West Coast than does the East Coast, and people don't think that way.
Oh, true, true.
Yeah, and this is the kind of stuff we're seeing. So as we grow, as we develop, as the partnerships come, we're looking to expand, and we're looking to expand quickly, but also effectively.
Makes sense. Makes sense. I like that. So my other question is, my follow-up is, are there any more books coming?
Yes, they are. There are. I mean, the goal is to eventually have books for cyber psychoanalysis, the triple conscious theory. So basically, what you've already seen is just having books catered towards those conversations, and
Okay.
then making sure that we're able to thoroughly, break it down for the common day user, so they understand it, so it's not too complex. But our most recent book is the triple conscious theory, or the theoretical framework
Yeah.
for social media dependency disorder, and breaking that down. And we address all those terms. We
Yeah.
introduce it, and then we break it down, genetic sequencing. So we even break that down. How does social media affect your genetics, your genetic makeup? And we're looking to find out what the genetic sequence of someone dependent on social media is. And, at the peak, at the peak velocity, right before they snap, which, I mean, yeah, to some people it's crazy, but nah, just like me, I was one of those people. I was fortunate to get help, but if I didn't, who knows what I would have done. And that's the kind of thing I always tell people. Social media is the abyss. And if you don't address it, if someone isn't in the know, you will get sucked in so quick. It's hard to get people out of that when you can't disconnect.
No, like you're spitting straight facts in the sense where, for example, influencer marketing. You think about that is the pinnacle of that, because these people are influence all these other people to do a certain thing. Like it's just social engineering, but from one person to buy X, Y, and Z product. Like it's crazy.
Well, and mind you, let's get deeper on that.
Okay.
The influencer is just a influencer of a product for themselves. So mind you, there's individuals that that I've known, that I've told I've told you what was going to happen, and it happened before it even happened. And that was because I knew the burnout. I knew that eventually the lifestyle that they're trying to keep up isn't gonna last.
Yeah.
And when you use social media, and I don't even know if you know this, but did you know some countries are actually giving out passports and permissions for people to travel as influencers, like influencer passports? Did you know that?
No, but I know now.
Yeah, Google that. They were doing that, and they not the pandemic, but no, they were doing it. And the problem was they had to keep creating, or they would lose their visa.
Yeah.
So they would come to the States, and they would basically have to be influencers because it's considered a job. You're getting paid. And let's say they stop. Let's say they're like, I'm tired and you got to make over a certain amount.
Yeah.
So what happens then? You get sent back. So now you're under pressure. Now you're stressed. Now you're depressed because now, oh, gee, if I lose partnerships, if I say the wrong thing, what's going to happen?
True.
What's going to happen? And then if that's all that you know, and you skip your whole teen years and you go into your real life, oh, you miss college. You
Yeah.
miss
True.
the
True.
highlight of your years. What's going on now? So these are the type of things I want people to think about. That even though you're an influencer, there's levels to this. Even though you're just a user of social media, you're not just a user. You're a product of social media.
Yeah, man. It's a lot, man. So where can people find you, support you, and just check out what you're doing?
Okay, so what you can do, you can go to my social media account, Jonathan M. Bertrand, JONATHAN, N as in Nancy, BERTRAND, my legal name.
Hey.
And you can also go to socialmediaawareness.org for more information. And that's how you can support, and you can donate on the website too. And, please leave us your story. We got contact information where you can write your story to us. And everything that we get, we do keep anonymous, so we will not mention your name. But if we want to use your story, we'll reach out and we'll ask if we can profile you to actually get your story. And if you would like to be featured, of course, waivers will be signed for permission. But yes, we're trying to get back into that advocating mode on a national scale now that COVID is kind of, they're opening things up again, and we're
Yeah.
able to kind of get back into reality.
Mhm.
And like I said, thank you, Malik, for always supporting. Thank you for, taking one for the team many times when I'll give you some phone calls late at night.
Yeah.
And I do appreciate it. But glad I can be on. And this is just the beginning. And remember, one post can change the mind, one comment can change a generation. Thank you.
Well, thank you for coming on the show, and I appreciate you. And then we could talk afterwards. I have some ideas.
Okay.
But this is the end of the podcast. Please subscribe, like, and check the post notifications. And I'll see you next time. Peace.
Thank you.